You are listening to The Divorce Duo. I'm Christina Previtt.
I'm John Knocklinger.
And we have offices in Piscataway and Morristown, New Jersey, serving pretty much all of New Jersey, except for South Jersey, practicing all aspects of family and divorce law. You can find us on Facebook. You can also find us at pnlawnj.com, centraljerseyfamilylaw.com. And you can email us any questions that you may have, anything you'd like us to address on the show at divorceduo@gmail.com.
You can also send us any requests for appearances from Christina.
Yes, I do charge a fee for that. Special appearances, maybe that's how we can start making our living. Isn't that, well, I want to say that's how Kim Kardashian started, but I guess we all know how she started.
Well, considering I just saw on your phone, an update that she's live right now.
Don't even tell people that. It's so embarrassing. I'm a closet Kardashian fan, okay? Stop it. We're going to have to edit this out later, Rob.
Christina, will you release your speeches to Wall Street?
Sure. Why not? So I have a confession to make. We are taping 2 shows because we're not live just yet. We just taped our show regarding college expenses, and that was taped on St. Patty's Day. So we were indulging in some wine, and obviously since we're still taping on St. Patty's Day, we're still indulging in the wine. Maybe overindulging in the wine now that we've been here an hour or so. So please excuse anything we may say that will offend you. So what's in the news? We like to start out by, talking about something light and fluffy, right? What's in the news? Actually, excuse me, John. We have a new routine going. John has found a lot of sound effects, so we're trying to make the most of those. We did find a very interesting article in Men's Health, and what's the title, John? It really grabbed us.
Hold on, I have to get away from the cover for a minute.
He's a little drunk right now, so it's on the cover, John.
It's called Ted's Painful, Expensive, but Otherwise Perfect Divorce.
Yeah, and what does it say on the cover?
Oh, it says, divorce, how men are getting screwed.
How men are getting screwed. And that's something that we hear a lot because I think there is this perception in the public that men get screwed in divorce. Although I think if you ask a woman, she'll say she gets screwed.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, reading this article, one thing I didn't know is that 2/3 of all divorces are initiated by wives.
I'm not surprised by that, though.
Yeah, well, this article, this guy, what's his name, Ted, it's all about how he just didn't know. He didn't know the marriage was over. He didn't know that his wife wanted a divorce. And so when she told him she wanted a divorce, it took him completely off guard. And since he was completely off guard, he was the one. Oh, yeah. That was wine. That was not Christina using the bathroom.
Oh, you had to go there.
Well, we know it's not using the bathroom because there would have been a lot of other sounds.
Sorry. So this is the show that's really going to be in the gutter. So if you're highbrow, you should probably turn this off right now.
But this article is really interesting. There are attorneys out there that advertise as men's attorneys.
Yes.
And I don't really get it. But I guess some men just want to feel like there's someone fighting a little extra hard for them. But
I think it's just marketing. I
think it is too. But
it's like Trump steaks.
Yeah, still men are disproportionately affected by things like alimony and custody, and things like that. So.
That's just because they're usually the ones that make money. I'm not going to get into all that feminist stuff, but men typically make more money than women.
It's true.
So that's the reason.
But this article, which I highly recommend if you're listening, go and it's the April 2016 edition of Men's Health. I think it was a very good article because really the point of the article isn't that men are getting screwed, even though that's what the cover says. It's really that men need to think a little bit more and open their eyes a little bit more about when their marriage is over so that they know they're in a dead-end marriage that needs to go away and you don't need to continue going through the motions and get to the point where your wife has decided it's over and is very upset. Because I think the reason divorces get really nasty is that someone's really upset.
Yes, someone's angry. It could be because there was an affair. That's very common. Or it could just be because one person kind of felt like they were blindsided, didn't know that there was a problem in the marriage, or maybe just didn't think that it was as bad as it was, that somebody was contemplating divorce. So it's always emotion that makes the divorce long and costly.
So in related news, let's talk about Madonna and her custody dispute.
Yeah, I think I'm a Madonna fan, but I think this has been interesting partly because it's been so public. It's interesting to see that, even someone like Madonna is in litigation over custody. And I think what's more interesting about this particular case is that it's an international custody issue, because Madonna, apparently her residence is technically New York. Her ex-husband's is London.
You wouldn't know by her accent.
Well, isn't that English accent done? Like, once she got rid of Guy Ritchie, he took the accent. He got the accent in the divorce, right? She wanted no part of England anymore after that. Yeah, suddenly it went away. But I don't know what accent she has now. But it's a little more different, a little different here because she's rich and because she's Madonna. But the dispute is international because the child had ran off to London to be with his father. From what I understand, what I've been reading in the gossip columns, is that he basically said, "I had enough of you, Madonna," and he wanted to go live with Dad, which really isn't uncommon for a 15-year-old boy. At some point, a lot of times we see this.
Well, he got sick of all of her antics. I mean, Madonna is one of the most public people in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, she's very opinionated. She's always, doing her thing. He just was sick of it. He was sick of the tours. He was sick of his mother and her, big bag of BS. Well, and his father
You don't sound like a Madonna fan right now, John.
Oh, I went to a concert with you.
That's right.
And we had a great time.
Yeah.
I was very surprised that her, her bones were able to survive through the entire performance. Well, she did take her Boniva, so I think it was fun. But
hey, I hope I look as good as her at 57. I don't even look that good now.
Well, thanks to the miracle of science.
Anyway,
I'm talking about Madonna, not you.
Thank you, John. I appreciate you clarifying that. I was about to divorce you after the show. Mm-hmm. But back to the custody battle. It's what I'm concerned about, or what I find a little odd, is that the husband, Guy Ritchie, was ordered to return the child back to New York from London, and he obviously didn't comply with that. If that had happened in the state of New Jersey, you would have had all kinds of litigation. You would have filed an order to show cause to compel the other parent to return the child. And if they didn't, potentially there could have been criminal sanctions. It doesn't seem like any of that happened here. I suspect it's because maybe Madonna came to her senses and decided not to pursue that. But this is really not just a legal issue. It's really a family problem. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yeah.
There's obviously some dynamic that's happening within this family, even though Guy Ritchie and Madonna aren't married any longer. It's still a family issue. So it's, from what I'm seeing and reading in the news, it seems like she's sort of agreed that the kid for now can stay with Dad.
Well, I think it's why children of celebrities tend to be really screwed up in the head, and they tend to do drugs, alcohol. They tend to do a lot of crazy things because they're sort of in this limelight, in this public eye all the time, and they've got eccentric parents like Madonna, who how could you ever be compared to your mother? It's like she'll always overshadow you. At least with Guy Ritchie, he's more subdued. He's just a director. You never really see him.
Yeah, he's not in the news a lot. But you know what? She has another child. She has a daughter, and nothing like this ever happened. So I tend to wonder if it has more to do with the fact that he's a boy and he's a teenager and he just wants to maybe be with his dad more at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, the celebrities... We'll talk about celebrities as we go along in the show in terms of their divorces, because it always gives you a a long list of the don'ts. Not
Yeah.
many of the do's, almost all of the don'ts.
Yeah, and we didn't talk about this, so I'm kind of springing this on you, but you know how some radio shows, they have a death poll? I think we should have a divorce poll. I think we should have a poll as to who's going to get divorced next, because it seems like everyone is getting divorced. Gwen Stefani, Jennifer Garner and Ben Affleck. Who else? There were a bunch of other people.
Yeah, but you know what?
news
Jennifer
recently.
doesn't need him anymore. She's got her Capital One
Oh,
money.
yeah, oh my God. Times must be tough if you have to do a Capital One commercial.
if I have to
I'm
see-
available, Capital One, if you want me to do a commercial. So hey, you know what? If you want to be part of the death pool, we got to divorce pool. We got to kind of figure this out. But put your nominations on our Facebook page and let us know who is going to get divorced next. You know what? Maybe Donald Trump.
Oh, God.
That'll never happen.
You don't think so?
Gold digger is here to stay.
Well, you
He
know
got
what?
divorced twice already.
How do you say her name? Melania?
Melania.
Well, if she wanted divorce, it's not like he could understand what she was saying anyway. Every time she speaks, I'm like, what is she saying?
he'll
How long
just-
has she been here?
He'll just throw her a lot of money and she'll go away.
Well, you know, he is worth $10 billion, right?
Supposedly.
Yeah, I highly doubt it. It's like magical money. So moving on, our topic today is anatomy of a divorce. And very exciting, but we're going to take you through from A to Z what a divorce looks like from the beginning to the very end. And this is not
Yeah.
meant to be in-depth conversation about any of these issues. We've discussed a lot of them on prior shows. We'll discuss a lot of them on shows that come after this. But we start with what I always like to call do you want the easy way or the hard way? And the easy way is we don't file a complaint with divorce. We just send a letter to the other side, whether it's the litigant themselves or their attorney, and say, listen, we want to try to resolve this case before we get the court involved. We want to try to enter into a settlement agreement. Would you sit down with us and talk? And usually that involves asking someone who doesn't have an attorney to go and get an attorney because I don't know how you feel about this, Christina, but trying to resolve a case of even moderate difficulty with someone that doesn't have an attorney, it doesn't always go very well.
Yeah, it's difficult because we're sort of approaching it like, the way a doctor would approach a surgery. We're not emotional about it. We're just applying the law and have a general idea how it should result right from the very beginning. And the other person is not filtered in that way. They're just kind of
Whatever.
emotional. Yeah, I get that a lot too.
But
But I do want to point out that sometimes there is a valid reason why you need to file an immediate complaint, and generally it has something to do with if the example I like to give is if someone's about to get a new award of stock options and they want the marital estate to be cut off so that that's not subject to equitable distribution. So reasons like that could be something valid, depending on who you represent. I'm going to generalize. If you represent the husband who's about to get a big giant bonus, maybe that's a reason to file the complaint. But most of the time, you don't have those reasons.
But if you can also do a stipulation to end the marriage date for purposes of assets, even if you don't file a complaint. But of course, you can't do that really unless there's another attorney on the other side that is
yeah,
going
and
to work with you.
those can get a little complicated too. I had a case recently where it expired, and the expiration date was not really too far off into the future, and I didn't particularly like my adversary, and we were constantly having to renew it and argue about it.
Well, is this the adversary you have in the middle of your dartboard in your office and you throw darts at
That's
every day?
one of them. We have a hall of fame for the adversaries that we really dislike immensely. Not just average ones that we just, complain about once in a while, but the ones we really dislike. And yes, she would be on that list. You really like that soundbite, don't you, John?
It's my new toy. Leave me alone. So move us on to
gonna
number
find some.
Move us on to number 2, Christina.
Okay, so once you file the complaint, now, again, if you've done a letter to your adversary, you may bypass some of this, but if you've already initiated a court proceeding, pretty early in the case, you're going to have to do an initial case management conference. And that sets the tone for the divorce. It establishes what the discovery period is going to be. And if you don't know what I mean by discovery, it's generally just a period of time early in the case when you have an opportunity to exchange documents or request documents that you may need, such as bank statements and things like that. You also have to establish at the case management conference if you need any appraisals, if you need any experts. So really, at this point in time, you should have identified largely what the main legal issues are in the case. And we've talked about this on other shows. We think the best way to do that, is to talk to an attorney. Find out what do you want? What do we need to get there? That's really what the point of the initial case management order is. What do we have to do in this case, and how are we going to get there?
Yeah, it's a very boring part of the case because really the litigants have nothing to really do with it. And more importantly, it's going to make you sad because it's going to make you look like you're going to be in the litigation for a very long time because you're going to see all these dates and they're going to be 4 or 6 months away. And so that's going to open your eyes up, hopefully to being more reasonable so you can try to settle your case. But if not, you know that you're going to be in for it for quite some time.
Yeah, and I will say that I think a lot of times in the beginning this is the very early stage of the process, you might have one party that has been done with you for the past 10 years and can't get out of here fast enough, but the other one needs time to catch up because psychologically they are not in the same place. Maybe they've just discovered that you want a divorce. They didn't even know,
or they just discovered you've been cheating on them.
Yeah, that's right. That you found a new younger boyfriend, and they can't wait to get rid of you.
Yeah, or boyfriend that is very different from you. Maybe someone with a criminal record, or someone of a very different, ethnicity that's kind of like conflicts with your culture. There's all kinds of reasons why it might just be more than someone wants a divorce, something that really is going to make you, grin and bear.
So psychologically, I find that most people are not in the same place. One person is further along than the other. So sometimes you have to sort of give that other person, the second one, a little time to catch up. And I can't help but notice that your wine glass is empty, and that's a terrible thing. So we need to fill that.
Well, we can fix that problem because to discuss the next issue, discovery, I am going to need a glass of wine. Because it is
Excellent segue.
because it is absolutely the worst part of a divorce, and quite frankly, sometimes the most expensive, other than a trial.
Yeah.
So discovery is the exchange of information, and there's several different kinds of discovery we can do. Christina is literally
Forget that, John.
pushing on.
Fill your glass.
Does that make you happy
Yes.
now? Okay. So you can ask questions of your spouse in terms of, any kind of questions that you want to ask. They might have something to do with just general finances. They might have to do with custody. They might have to do with whether or not someone's employable. In other words, have you been sitting around on your butt forever? Or if you actually been out trying to get a job, what kind of job do you want? That sort of thing. They might be lifestyle questions. How often do you go out to eat? What kind of restaurants do you go to? All this sort of
Do you
good stuff.
shop at Neiman Marcus or TJ Maxx?
Well, we know you shop at Neiman Marcus.
Well, I browse. Let's say I browse. I buy
know.
once in a while, but
Yeah, the boxes coming into our office tend to suggest it's not more than once in a while. Then you have to, then there might be depositions, which are the questions you ask orally with a court reporter under oath, which I've started to do more often because I'm really losing my patience for written discovery.
yeah, it just takes forever. I'm so tired of sending interrogatories to someone with 100 questions that you don't need. Do you have a horse? Do you have an airplane? Don't we all know? If you have a horse or an airplane, don't you know? Are you hiding it somewhere?
I know, or the expensive fur and expensive paintings and all the
Yeah.
other nonsense, or the boats. I think you would know. Also, this is when you would get appraisals done. Usually we're talking about an appraisal of a house, but it could be other things. I've had cases where we've appraised, motorcycles and things like that. And then experts. Are we going to have expert involvement? Are you going to have a custody expert? Are you going to have a accountant who becomes an expert to find, the missing money? Everyone thinks there's missing money.
Oh, everybody thinks that men and women, they all think that the other spouse has cash somewhere, that there's money buried somewhere, that it's hidden, and they're going to find it.
Oh, always. It's amazing. Or that you're going to find things on credit card statements where they've taken their new girlfriend or boyfriend out to dinner or out to Atlantic City or whatever. So, so discovery can be long. It can be expensive. It's never particularly useful in the majority of cases because in the majority of cases, everyone pretty much knows what's going on. And discovery is just going to create a situation where every time you get a deficiency notice or the other side saying, why haven't you complied with discovery? There's things we asked for that you didn't provide. You and your attorney are just going to sit there and be like,
whatever.
So, I really think...
That was perfect.
Thank you. Great timing.
Yeah, that was good.
I'm very proud of myself. So that's what discovery is all about. We could talk about discovery for a very long time. It costs so much
Boring.
money. It is boring, but I can tell you I have many cases where the discovery process alone is $10,000 or $15,000.
I know, but I just think it's all stalling.
It is.
It's just a game. Most of the discovery that we exchange is totally unnecessary.
Absolutely. So what happens if there's a custody dispute?
Well, if there's a custody dispute, I certainly encourage people to try to at least exchange maybe some settlement proposals. But you do get one free mediation session through the probation department in your county. So you get something for free.
It's your tax dollars at work.
That's right. And I really do believe that the mediators that do that custody mediation at the courthouse, I think they're very good. I've seen a lot of them really work hard to try to settle the case, and oftentimes they do settle. Everybody thinks they're not going to settle, but you have to go unless there's a domestic violence situation. If there's a restraining order, then you're not allowed to go. But many people settle there. Your attorneys do not go to that. Sometimes that could be the reason it settles because you're just two parties there with a neutral person and no attorneys there to complicate things.
I will tell you, because it just happened to me the other day, where a client will sit across from me and tell me they want 50-50 custody. They want as much time with their kids as possible. They go to this mediation and I get the order back and it says alternate weekends and one dinner visit. And I'm just looking at it like, what the heck happened? And
That happens, yeah.
And I just think that whenever you're face to face with your spouse and you're thinking about just your kids, because when it's just you, your spouse, and the mediator, you're not talking about money anymore. You're just talking about the kids. And when
Yeah.
it's just about the kids, people tend to make a good decision. And that's why I think this mediation process is particularly good, because you kind of take away all the ancillary issues and you just concentrate
Yeah.
on the kids. And these mediators, I will tell you, our main office is in Middlesex County, and Christina and I both clerked for judges in Middlesex County quite a while ago. And I'm partial, but I think Middlesex County has two of the finest mediators
They
in the
really
state.
do.
They're
really
excellent.
do.
But that's not to say there's a great mediator in Mercer County. There's an excellent mediator in Monmouth County who actually we found out it has some relationship to our realtor that we've been using lately.
Realtor.
Whatever.
Sorry, that bothers me.
It bothers you. So so it's custody always consumes all the oxygen in the case. So the good
Yes.
part is
I like that expression, John.
it does. It consumes it all. So
does.
so they really strive to put that in at the beginning of the case. So once the complaint is filed and once the case management conference occurs that Christina so eloquently told us all about, then they'll schedule you for mediation, usually pretty quickly. Ideally within the first 2 or 3 months, you go to mediation and see if you can get that resolved. And the way that the rules work is you can't even retain an expert until you go to mediation. Like mediation is like the prerequisite before you can do anything else, because the court knows the statistics, which are that most people resolve at this parent-in-time mediation. And it's free. It's free.
Yeah.
I tell everyone all the time, it's free. Go.
Yeah, what do you have to lose?
Well, and I would expect people to be like all excited, being all like, but most people are like, I don't want to go, or why can't you go with me, or, some other nonsense. And most people don't want to be around their spouse alone. I see men all the time. They're like, I don't want to be around my wife alone. I don't know why. I think because there's this ongoing trend these days where so many people are being accused of bogus domestic violence that a lot of guys, they don't even want to be anywhere near a spouse, particularly if it's a heated situation, because they're scared. And I think a lot of times their spouses know this.
I don't know. I have other opinions, but I think I'm going to keep them to myself right now.
Well, you should get them. I mean, what you think the women are scared of their husbands?
I think sometimes women are. I think more often men are just sort of non-confrontational and they just don't want to deal with it.
No,
They don't want to deal with it.
That's probably true. Well, we'll get into more disputes where Christy and I don't agree when we come in after the break. You've been listening to The Divorce Duo on PANJradio.com. Stay with us.
Are you having fun running your business marketing? Or does online marketing and social media overwhelm you? Would you like to use Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram, Snapchat, or LinkedIn, to name just a few online social marketing opportunities to market your business successfully? Amplify Your Voice can help. We work exclusively with local businesses in the PANJ radio target area of Hunterdon, Mercer, and Bucks counties, offering social media workshops, one-on-one coaching, managed services, direct online marketing, and web design. Contact us today at 973-615-5287 or email us at radio@ampyourvoice.com for a free no-obligation review of your online marketing. You can also visit us at www.ampyourvoice.com. Amplify your voice in a crowded market. Together, we will put the fun back in your business marketing. It's all authentic comfort food at Bitter Bob's in New Hope. Bob serves mouth-watering barbecued pork and chicken dishes, signature sloppy sandwiches, homemade cornbread, macaroni and cheese and collard greens, all the great southern dishes you crave for. Bob serves weekend brunch, lunch, and dinner, BYOB, with an outside patio that is dog-friendly, and he has a kids menu. Great desserts, too. And Bob can cater any event, big or small. Tell the waitstaff you heard this commercial and get 10% off. Bitter Bob's in New Hope, PA. Authentic comfort food for your family.
Wake up, Christina.
Huh?
We're back on.
What?
You're listening to The Divorce Duo on PANJradio.com. Christina's had too much wine to drink today.
Makes me sleepy.
She's sleepy and hungry, and all you guys out there know what happens when when your woman gets sleepy and hungry.
I'm going to be hangry before too long.
Well, I mean, you did beat me up during the break because I didn't agree with you before we...
No, I beat you up because you were wrong.
Well, I'm wrong because my mouth was moving, right?
Yeah, kind of, something like that.
Well, and there you go. So where were we when we stopped for our break? We were talking about the anatomy of a divorce, and I think we had gotten through the head, the neck, the torso. We're around the stomach area now, which is motions.
Oh,
I know.
the stomach.
It's like the gut, the small intestines.
Okay.
So motions are, for lack of a better way of saying, are when you when you ask the judge to do something. And that's the only way theoretically, that a judge is ever supposed to do something is when you actually make a motion.
Although some judges like to just do things, what we call sua sponte, just on their own, even if it violates due process.
Yeah, well, I mean,
That's just an aside.
What's a violation of due process amongst friends?
What does it matter?
So the kinds of motions that that are frequent during a divorce are pendenti liti motions. Did I get it right, Christina?
Pendente lite.
Oh, good Lord!
That's what I say.
I thought you liked liti. Whatever.
I say lite.
They are temporary support orders. They're frequently filed by the supported spouse, which we'll call the wife, just because Christina likes to stereotype women as being earning less.
What? I not stereotype. No, I don't stereotype women as earning less. I stereotype men as earning more.
That was such a lawyer comment. Such a lawyer comment. Now you know why people hate lawyers.
Yeah, I know why they hate us.
It's not hot outside. It's just not cold.
That's right.
So these motions are expensive. The average pendenti liti motion will run you somewhere probably between $3,000 and $6,000.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Unless you're at certain firms and you can see bills more than $10,000.
Yeah, we won't say the names of any of those firms.
Yes, but if you see a bill for a motion more than $10,000, you need to kind of
Yeah,
take
you
a
need to
look at it.
seriously question what is going on at that firm.
Yeah. So
But the purpose of these motions, really, John, isn't it to address some issue that needs to be addressed immediately in the case? And not every case is going to have a pendente lite motion.
No, it's usually the cases where husband has moved out of the house and is not giving any money to the wife that's still in the house with the kids, or is giving her what he thinks is the right amount, but it's not enough to really do what she needs it to do. And so you have to come to court and get a judge to award something that's fair. The danger is always that you get an award that's too high or too low,
Yeah.
and it makes settling the case
Yeah,
almost impossible.
if someone gets it too good, they don't want to settle, because if their permanent situation is going to be worse, then it's sort of a cost-benefit analysis at some point. You know?
This is what they're doing.
I mean, I've got a guy now, he's paying $2,000 a month. It's not called alimony, but that's really what it is. And he's probably going to have to pay anywhere from $4,000 to $6,000 a month in alimony when they actually get divorced. So do you know what it's like trying to get him to settle? He doesn't want to pay more than $2,000 a month.
Yeah, a lot of times judges do more harm than good, even though there is certain law out there that says a judge can go back in time and modify this temporary order at the end of the case.
Yeah, retroactively if they got it wrong.
Yeah. I have yet to actually see that happen in practice.
Yeah, it doesn't generally
But
happen.
everyone threatens it all the time. Have you noticed? It's this case called Malamo. Everyone's always like, there's a Malamo claim here.
Yeah, or they say, "Oh, don't worry if your client's not getting enough money. We can adjust it later with a Malamo adjustment."
It's always we can adjust it
That's
later.
like saying, "I know you need a blood transfusion right now, but don't worry, we can give you more blood later."
You haven't had water. You haven't had water in 6 days. You know what?
Don't worry.
The human body can survive 7 days. We'll give it to you in a couple hours.
Kind of like a camel. We're holding it for you in your hump. So the point of these motions, and again, we want to emphasize, they're not usual in every case. They happen if they need to. So you don't have to do a
Although
motion.
there are attorneys out there that will file them in every single case.
Yes, there are motion attorneys that will do that. But you have to maintain the status quo. So that means whatever you did in the past in terms of paying the bills and, providing access to bank accounts and credit cards and things like that, you both have to continue to do that. You can't just say, "Well, I've decided I'm getting a divorce, so I'm going to close up all the bank accounts and close all the credit cards and cancel the auto insurance." You can't do that.
Oh,
So
yeah.
while it's happening, you have to just keep everything status quo. And usually a motion happens when someone has decided they're not going to maintain the status quo.
Yeah, and if there's two good attorneys, usually we can work it out without a motion, unless one of this husband or wife is just off the rails and isn't being
Or
reasonable.
one of the attorneys is off the rails.
Yeah, well, that might actually be more likely than not. I mean, I've seen certain attorneys, Christina knows who I'm talking about, certain attorneys on current cases of ours that think that during this period of the case, that the income should be equalized.
Yeah, I think that's just asinine.
Yeah. I also just want to let you know that you'll hear a lot about status quo, and that's not actually what the law is. The law is what's reasonable, fit, and just. And you tell me what the heck you think reasonable, fit, and just means, because I don't know what the heck it means.
Yeah, sometimes, I mean, I should clarify that if the status quo was that, let's say, mom made $100,000 a year and dad made $100,000 a year, but for some reason dad paid all the bills, most likely a court will sort of readjust that because it would be more fair to have the parties sharing the expenses in some way. But I think most of the time, it's usually the status quo. The parties have already kind of worked out who pays what during the marriage. And most of the time, I think judges have a tendency to want to continue whatever they were doing.
Oh, absolutely. So the next thing that happens after, discovery and you're dealing with motion practice and all of this, although motions can happen at any point during the case, is the early settlement panel or the
Yeah.
ESP. What is that, Christina?
And that's really the first major court event, I think, after the complaints. You have those other things that happen relatively soon, which we just talked about. But then the next major court event, which could be anywhere from 3 to 6 months after you first file your complaint, is ESP. That's early settlement panel. And that's an opportunity to go to court and have two family law attorneys who are neutral, and they're supposed to be experienced in family law, and sometimes we respect who they are, sometimes we don't, but most of the time they're people that have been doing family law for some time and probably know the law pretty well. And it's at the courthouse, but it's outside of the courtroom, so the judge does not hear what's happening. It's very informal. It's not a trial. And the two attorneys for husband, wife, the two parties will just speak very informally with this panel and explain what the case is about, explain what the issues are, why haven't we settled, and whatever arguments you guys are having. And then those two panelists, their job is to just make a recommendation and try to be two neutral outside people that just say, look, this is what I think alimony would probably end up being if you had a trial. Sometimes I think it's helpful. I think more often than not, it's not as helpful just because of the way it's set up. You don't get a lot of time generally to spend with the panel, and for that reason, they only have very limited information. But I think it's a good opportunity to hear what somebody else thinks about the case. And more importantly, sometimes it's the very first time you're ever hearing what the other person's settlement position is.
I'd say more often than not, that's the first time you're hearing what the other person's settlement position is. I'm a panelist in Middlesex County for reasons I'm not entirely clear of, but I'm a panelist, and I will tell you that I don't have a high regard for early settlement panels. I'm very vocal about it. I think that it may have been useful at some point in the past. I think it's because we've moved to a mediation style of litigation these days. I just don't think it's quite as effective because of what you just said. There's not enough time. So you're talking about explaining the entire facts of a case to people in 10 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, you just can't do that. I in fact, when I prep my clients to go, and you can tell us what you do, I always tell them, don't get upset if you hear a recommendation that's not something you want, or if it's completely outside of anything that we've talked about, because for that reason, they don't have a lot of time. They're not going to look at discovery. They're not going to, I mean, if you're lucky, they read your ESP memo.
In most counties, they don't. I mean, for example, in Middlesex, we don't get the statements until the day of, and then we still don't read them. We just listen to the attorneys. But I will tell you that behind the scenes, you said they're neutral people, and we are neutral. However, the first question I ask attorneys when they come in is, what do you need us to tell your clients?
Yeah, I think that's helpful. I think good ESP panelists do that. I have not always had that experience. I remember one time in particular, an ESP panelist argued with me about what our position was, and I know that he was wrong. So I wasn't thrilled that this was the information that he was relaying to my client because, quite frankly, I thought he was an idiot. But
I wonder how many people have said that about me.
and that's not just the wine talking. So that's why I tell my clients, kind of take it with a grain of salt. I would hope that I've built up enough trust with my client by the time we get to ESP that if I tell them the ESP panelists were good, experienced attorneys who know what they're talking about and they give us a recommendation, then that's something we can respect. But if there are attorneys that, let's face it, there's just some attorneys that have reputations for being a little more competent than others, not to really care too much what they say. And the reason I say that is because it's not binding. It's almost like going to mediation. It's not binding. They make a recommendation. They tell you what they think, but that's it. If you want to listen, you can. If not, then we're on to the next thing.
The only thing that would ever be reported out of ESP, because I've done it more than once, is if one of the litigants becomes violent during ESP. Because more than once, and I don't mean like physical violence necessarily, but there's certain people who, when they're told they're wrong or they're told how the case should settle, they get very upset and they can't control their emotions, and their attorney hasn't properly prepped them for what's going to happen at ESP. And that does get reported to a judge. So be careful, be respectful. You should always be respectful. I don't understand. I mean, quite frankly, not to keep bringing up your boyfriend, Donald Trump, but to me, what's going on at his rallies is just a symbol of what's been going on everywhere in the country. People are feeling more and more comfortable being completely inappropriate in situations where it's been known that you should act a certain way. For example, the courthouse. You shouldn't be yelling and screaming in the courthouse. You shouldn't be cursing in the courthouse. You shouldn't be acting like this is the third world.
Yeah.
And I really feel like there's something changing right now in the country, and it's really disturbing to me. But be that as it may. And there you go.
Yeah. That'll be happening in the streets soon. Yeah, I think that's what
well, your boyfriend said it's going to happen at the convention.
That's my
nominee.
my objection to Donald Trump is I just don't think he doesn't seem to have any sense of decorum, and I think people are, people seem to say, but he's like us, but. Well, first of all, who's the us that is saying this?
Well, I have relatives who support Donald Trump, and it scares me, but. I can understand why certain people are attracted to him. I mean, people are pissed off. They're pissed off. And when you're pissed off, you act a certain way. So, but if you don't settle it at the early settlement panel, you must go to mediation. And it's mandatory economic mediation. That's the next step, number 7 in our anatomy of a divorce.
You get the first 2 hours for free.
Yeah, we're kind of in the midsection now. The buttocks area of our anatomy.
The buttocks?
Yeah, the buttocks. Mediation to me is where 80 to 90% of all cases settle.
Yeah, they do. And most people think we're never going to settle. I'm not going to go to mediation. But, most cases will settle there, even the ones that are convinced they won't.
Yeah,
Often they do.
Because it's really, first of all, you have an attorney, hopefully who's very experienced. It's giving you the time, finally. Someone's giving you the time to sit down and go through everything. And most good mediators do what I call shuttle diplomacy. They put the parties in different rooms, and they go between the rooms, and they, sort of try to figure out where the midpoint is. And a good mediator, as I've always heard this expression, they know a case is settled when they're walking between the rooms, because they finally know that the parties are close enough that they can sort of close the deal. And sometimes, one party's the big problem. I was just at a mediation recently where the mediator pretty much made it clear to me that the other side's attorney was the problem.
Yeah, and I think that happens a lot. I think when the other attorney is the problem, mediation is probably the only way to deal with that, because you get a neutral person that can just go in there and talk to the client. Because I can't talk to the other client, and they wouldn't trust me anyway. But the mediator can. So the mediator can sort of relay information to the client that they might not be hearing from their own attorney.
Well, they probably aren't. So mediation is what we do after ESP, and hopefully that'll settle your case. If that doesn't settle your case, what happens next, Christina?
So if you don't settle at economic mediation, you do have another court event, and that is usually an ISC or an ISP, that's Intensive Settlement Conference or Intensive Settlement Panel, depending on what county you're in. And really what that is just another opportunity to go and sort of try to mediate. At that point, you go to court and the attorneys will meet with the judge privately and express what the issues are in the case, what's the impediment to settling, and oftentimes the judge will give his or her sort of informal opinion about maybe what they would do with those issues. It's nothing binding, but sometimes they'll tell you what they think about those particular issues, and sometimes that can be helpful settling. I actually had a really good experience recently in Ocean County where we did ISP, and it was a retired judge that basically mediated the case. And I thought he did a really excellent job, and we settled the case. So in that particular instance, it was helpful. Yeah. And my client was very happy.
I think it was all you, though. It was all
Yeah,
you.
sure. Thank you, John.
You're very
appreciate that.
intimidating. I don't think you know that.
I've been told that before.
When you walk in, it's like people are just like, oh my God.
Yeah, it's like the angels.
The Prevet is here. We have to.
It's just because I'm so grumpy and bitchy all the time. They're like, oh God.
No, you said that, not me. I didn't say it. So if you don't settle at ISC or ISP or just a settlement conference with the court, you're going to be scheduled for trial. Now, that sounds, everyone's watched a lot of TV shows that have trials. And it all sounds, when you watch TV, you have an idea what trial is. It's nothing like that in the family part in New Jersey.
Yes, if you watch The Good Wife, which we're fans, right, John?
It's the last
Love that
season.
show. I know,
Last
very
season.
sad. But if you watch that show or, Law and Order or something like that, it doesn't happen the way it happens on those TV shows. You don't find that one piece of evidence somewhere by happenstance that saves the day. It just doesn't happen that way. And the court appearances are not nearly as interesting as what they show on television. It's pretty boring.
Have you always noticed on those TV shows, it's like they're doing discovery at the last minute always? The private investigators just finding that last piece of evidence at the last minute. I'm like, it's trial. Haven't you been doing this for like 6 months?
I want a Kalinda. If you watch The Good Wife, there's this woman, Kalinda. In fact, I don't even think she's on the show.
She's not on anymore, but oh my God.
They have this woman who she's a private investigator for the firm, and she just goes out and, she collects data and she spies on people and she gets all kinds of evidence at the last minute that saves the day. I would love to have somebody. We need a Kalinda.
We do need a Kalinda, but I wonder if we could get Juliana Margulies to join us on the show.
Well, she's going to be jobless.
She is going to be jobless. Maybe she'll have some moments.
We should call her.
You know what? She likes wine. Maybe we can
That's
get
what
her
I
with
hear.
some wine. She might want more expensive than what we bought, but
You don't, it's a fallacy that you need to buy an expensive bottle of wine to have good wine.
Oh, I agree.
You really don't.
I know. There's plenty of good wine that appears in boxes. So a trial, there's certain counties, and Middlesex County is a great example of this, where if you don't settle, you're going to be in a trial in 12 to 18 months, a real trial, not just a fake trial. There's other counties, Mercer.
What's a fake trial? Please clarify that for everyone.
A fake trial would be you show up for trial, your attorneys build you to prepare for trial. Maybe you've even been told by the judge you have to submit certain things to trial, certain things to the court for trial. You show up and the judge says, go to a room and try to settle your case. And
or go out in the hallway, just go try to settle.
Yeah, and maybe you do that, and then you get a new trial date. You come back the second time, and, go do it again because I'm too busy.
Yeah, and the judge will tell you, well, I have 3 trials scheduled for today, and one's actually going to start. So that means you other 2 people have to go out and settle.
Yeah, so the whole system, just so everyone understands, is coercive. The whole system is made so that you settle your case.
Yeah, it's almost like, too, you're punished
Yeah.
because you didn't settle. What's wrong with you that you didn't settle by
Absolutely.
now? Because by the time you get to trial, you've certainly been around for more than a year.
So the final piece of the puzzle, which is the feet, although I don't know that should be the feet, but be that as it may, is that settlement can happen at any time.
Yeah, it can happen when you call your attorney. It could happen a week later. Of course, that's rare, but it can happen any time in the proceeding. It can happen before the complaint. It can happen right after the complaint. Maybe you have to wait 6 months when you go to mediation, or it could happen the first day of trial. We've also had cases that settled halfway through trial.
Yeah.
So you can always settle at any time in your case.
Absolutely. So that was the anatomy of a divorce, and we just touched the surface. You'll hear more about these pieces of the divorce as we go along. So moving right along to our war story. What do you have for us today, Christina?
Okay, so I had an experience actually just yesterday where I had a domestic violence trial. I represented the defendant, who was the husband, stereotypical, but it was the husband. And I was all prepped for trial. I firmly believed that we were going to win. I thought it was just a loser case. It was a totally bogus restraining order. I show up at court, guns blazing, and, I'm ready to go. And the wife is there. She does not have an attorney with her. And she tells the sheriff's officer in the hallway that she doesn't want a permanent restraining order, that she just wants to have a little more time to move out of the house. So at that point, I'm, jumping up and down in my head, excited, because she's basically just acknowledged that she does not need to have a restraining order. So that was a good day for me in court. We did manage to settle it to my client's satisfaction, and the wife was actually amenable to leaving the house, and my client got custody of the child, and we left there actually very happy. So that was a good day in court. And
this goes back to, she just took one look at you and was like, I have to settle because I'm going to lose.
Yeah, I'd like to think that's the way it went down. I appreciate that, John. But, I think that if she had had an attorney, I think that the results might have been a little different. So I encourage people to have attorneys when they're going.
Because you know what? The way we met was at a restraining order hearing.
Yes.
As you might recall. And you came in and tried to pull that crap with me, and I just took one look at you and I said, not so fast.
John wasn't having it.
I wasn't having any of that because you didn't scare me. You scare me now, but not then.
Because you know me now.
Absolutely. So thanks for joining us. Join us next week when we're going to be discussing domestic violence. A very hard topic to talk about, but there's a lot of very important information that you need to know. You've been listening to The Divorce Duo on PANJradio.com. Please visit us at centraljerseyfamilylaw.com. And please email us about the show and any questions you have to divorceduo@gmail.com. Have a great week. We'll see you next Friday.